Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have with us Dr. Bryant Marks, and we're going to get into the conversation to inspire positive change. Dr. Marks, welcome to the Black Male Impact. But before we get into the conversation, I just want to share just short bio with you, but I know Dr. Marks will share more. But Dr. Brian T. Marks is a minister, a researcher, trainer, an award-winning educator. I would say he's a distinguished educator who have been making an impact, especially amongst HBCU. But I'll let Dr. Marks share with you before we get into the conversation. Dr. Marks, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So hello to everyone. I am Dr. Bryant Marks, professor of psychology at Morehouse College. I'm a social psychologist by training, originally from Queens, New York, then undergrad at Morehouse, graduate school, University of Michigan. First job is at the University of Illinois at Chicago before coming back down to Morehouse in the fall of 2004. I've been here ever since, done a variety of projects, and whether it's research or training. Did a bit of work. I was part of the Obama administration for several years. And so now we run a national diversity, equity, inclusion practice with an emphasis on improving the image of, well, young Black males in particular. I'm at Morehouse, but sort of reducing bias more generally. So prior to what I'm doing currently, I was director of the Morehouse Male Initiative in the Morehouse Research Institute.
Okay, man, thank you. I know that's a very extended bio, the work that you've been doing. But before I get into the questions that I have for you, could you share what was that experience like working with President Obama with the HBCUs?
So yes, I worked as a senior research associate with the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. So that was great. I mean, it was part of what I'd already been doing. So at Morehouse, when I was over the Morehouse Male Initiative, we examined the development, the psychological and academic development of Black males in college. So we researched freshman through senior year students, Black males at Morehouse, and about 16 other schools, half HBCUs, half predominantly white schools. And so they looked at the differences between the experiences and the outcomes. And so when we worked with Obama, it was sort of expanding that work. So we worked on several different projects with the White House Initiative and HBCUs, including Second Chance Pell. And part of what we did there was we actually worked in a project where there was a grant where institutions, colleges and universities could apply to provide college courses to local prisons, state and federal prisons. It was federal. We started out federal. And so it gave these young men, many of which were young Black men, an opportunity. They had to have a GED or high school diploma to take college level courses. And so they would receive college credit. And the idea was once they left the prison system, they could transition into an actual community college or even four-year college. So we worked on that. It's run for several years now. I think it's yielding some good results. And then we also worked on My Brother's Keeper, which focused on men of color, particularly African-American males as well. So enjoyed it. Obama's cool. He's what you thought he would be. I met him twice. Cool, smart, funny, the whole thing. So it was a good experience.
I know that must have been an amazing experience. Thanks for sharing that. And I know that may have impacted many Black males, especially if they have been a part of the justice system. So I want to get into the questions that I have for you that I want to ask to see where this conversation goes. My first question is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
I'll reduce it to what my colleague calls, Carol Dweck, a growth mindset. So growth mindset, in as opposed to a fixed mindset, says that people can change and improve over time with practice, with knowledge, with information, with experience. And so if you have a fixed mindset, says you see people as that's a B student, that's the funny child, that's this one. You label them, they're locked in. And if you look at larger society, the traits associated with young Black males tend to be negative. So if you expose those negative traits, you might lock in that association and see young Black men as criminal, dangerous, thug, rappers, and athletes, because that's what society associates with them. Growth mindset says, let me look past that, see this person as a human being with the potential that all human beings have to do almost anything, right, that any other human being has done. Yeah. And that sort of vision, that sort of spirit of discernment is what we try to develop, whether we're working with teachers. We work with a lot of teachers. with police officers, work with a lot of police officers, prosecutors, judges, doctors, nurses. When they look at young black males, can they look past the labels, past the stereotypes, and see their humanity and their potential?
Man, that is powerful and important. But how would you deal with educators that refuse to accept that they have those biases?
Show them the data, right? So some educators say, I don't have any bias. Every single human being on the planet has both implicit and explicit bias.
Yes.
It comes with the package, okay? So what we do is we show them the science, and it's overwhelming, right?
Wow.
But if you want to know if you have a bias or not, here's an easy one. We get the educators, right? So it doesn't deal with young black males. We just ask them to remember when they were dating. And you can do this as well. Just think about when you were dating, right? So you're dating, and if I ask you to complete the following phrase, I would never date someone who, what? Fill in the blank,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so we do this in our trainings in person and virtually. We have them put it in the chat. And it'll be all types of things. Who smokes, who had bad breath, who doesn't respect their elders, who doesn't, talks down to wait staff, like all types of things come up. That's bias,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if somebody smokes, you'll date a non-smoker but won't date a smoker. That's literally bias. Differential treatment or response to another human being based upon the group to which they belong. So if you'll date a non-smoker but won't date a smoker, that you're discriminating, right? We could understand it, but it's still bias. And so we point out these examples, and most people can relate to the dating example because most people have some sort of red flag, no-go, a turn-off, and we can usually convert that into them seeing it as bias. And then we talk about privilege similarly, like, for example, are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay. So when was the last time you consciously thought about your right hand privilege?
I haven't.
Right. And that's the point, right? So we live in a world where right hand has privilege. I mean, just going back to kids, whether it's your scissors, whether it's having right-handed desks where the platform comes over from the right side versus left-handed desk, whether it's belts, whether it's a mouse, whatever it is. Right-handed people have certain privilege that they don't have to sort of think about being right-handed. Left-handed, what hand do you think left-handed people shake with when they meet somebody for the first time? They're right-handed.
Right-handed. Yes.
They adjust to us,
Yes.
right? Because we're the dominant group. If you go into an auditorium in a college campus, you go to an auditorium and the platforms come up and they fold over so that you can write on them. What side are those platforms located on? On the right side.
Yes,
You know where the left-handed platforms are? Against the wall, right? Because they come up from the left side. So you got these left-handed people sitting all the way across the room on the left side of the wall looking crazy, right? So the notion is we have right-hand privilege, don't even know it, don't think about it, but it still exists, right?
Wow.
So just because, are you a bad person? Do you feel guilty for being right-handed, right?
No.
Skin color is just as random. Skin tone is just melanin, right? Skin tone is less than 1%. The stuff we base race on, skin color, eye color, hair color, less than 1% of the human genetic code.
Wow.
Random, right? Minuscule. But we've had wars based on skin color. We've had slavery based on skin, all types of things based on skin color. Just as random as being right or left-handed.
Wow.
Right?
That's a great perspective. And listeners, I don't know if you have take the time to look at it from that perspective, but that's something that we need to look at, especially when we're talking about making a difference and making an impact. And I want to go into my next question. I know you could talk on that one topic forever because that's your life work. But I want to go into the next question. What advice do you have for the men listening on how they can play a role in creating positive change?
I say start small, start with yourself, and start with the people closest to you. So start with yourself, self-improvement. Take care of your mind, body, soul, spirit. All right. Your health is critically important. So self-care, just be an example. Speak to people in kindness, be encouraging, be positive, strive for excellence, put in the effort, hard work. Just be an example. So that when other people see you, remember the stereotypes are out there. But if they see you, they say, wait a minute, like he works hard, he's pretty smart, it doesn't fit the stereotype. So your very presence, your very performance, your work ethic can serve as an example to counter negative stereotypes that exist. So let's start with self-improvement. Read books. Start with yourself. Then start with the young black males around you. Son, nephew, neighbor, son, whatever, church member. You see a young black male, not necessarily on the right track, or he's on the right track, but you can see a path where he could be distracted. Pick one, maybe two. Positively impact them. Join the mentoring program, right? Drop your buckets where you are. It doesn't have to be a national sort of thing. You don't got to join a national organization. You can have a positive impact on the young black men in your local orbit. Okay. Some people try to make it so big that it can become intimidating. Start with yourself and the people around you.
And that is profound. And that is important. Self-improvement will make change happen. Because again, as you said, we start with ourselves and be the example. But one point that you make that I really, really like, don't live according to the stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we get that, we start to move away from what the expectation or the misconceptions that they have of us. We should make sure we are not living according to the stereotypes that they have socially constructed for us. So my next question to you, Dr. Marks, is how can we as Black men help to change the narrative today? I think it links directly to what you said about self-improvement, but is there anything else that you would say that we can do to help change the narrative?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to sort of the being the example piece, just decide on like this. We do a lot of training for workplaces, right? How to reduce bias in the workplace. And so part of what we talk about is ways that you can cope with potential bias. And one strategy is education. So it could be tiring to educate other people about your group, but sometimes it is necessary. So if somebody says something, that may be off-putting, offensive, maybe a little bit ignorant, let's just put the emotion aside and take that moment to educate. Because oftentimes you can tell whether somebody's statement is coming from a place of malicious, negative intent, or if it's just naivete or sort of ignorance. And so usually you can tell. Sometimes you can't. Often you can't. And when it's coming from a place, maybe ignorance or lack of exposure, take a few minutes and say, hey, I know you didn't mean it this way, but just understand what you said could have been received slightly offensively. Another way to sort of phrase it or think about it could be X, Y, and Z. Now, this requires, you got to take into account if there's a power differential, like doing this with your boss may not work so well, right? Or doing it even with a colleague. But the notion is if you're in a space or workplace or an environment, even socially, if you're in an environment where you feel it's safe and low risk for you to provide somebody with constructive feedback, you'll be able to take the time to do that. Because some people, especially when it's implicit, they just don't know. They're coming from a good place and just don't know that what they're saying may be slightly offensive. So the challenge, I think, with some Black men is to be perceived as an angry Black man. So that's why that's why I said pull back on somebody. If there is an emotional response, try to pull back on that and give some folks a little bit of space, a little bit of grace, have the conversation. Some people are open and some people are not, right? That's just how it is. But I think that's another way, besides being a personal example, to sort of contribute to improving the narrative.
And that's important. And here, which I will be going back to listen to this myself to absorb what you shared. So I hope the listeners are taking notes and practice some of what is shared here. But so my next question to you is, what or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on?
So first, my father, who's actually right back over there, that sort of silhouette. Okay. That's my dad back there.
Okay.
And so he was born and raised in Tylertown, Mississippi, which is in Walthall County, southern Mississippi. One of 12 siblings, grew up on a farm. Main crop on their farm was cotton, right? So actually, when my father was 15 years old, he handpicked 412 pounds of cotton in one day.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you know how light cotton is, right?
Oh, yeah.
But grown men can barely pick 200 pounds a day. So he picked 412 pounds of cotton one day when he's 15. He set the record for his county, making him a cotton picking champion.
Wow.
Right? So that work ethic, he left Mississippi in 1964, went up to New York, met my mom, and stayed in that's why I grew up in New York. But he came from a work ethic. He came up through, Jim Crow South, segregation, drinking from the water fountains, the whole thing. And so for me to grow up in a house and complain, I don't want to do my homework, and this dude picked cotton when he was 15, I can't even part my lips to say things like that, right? Like, understand. So just his presence, his example, what he had to go through to achieve what he did in his lifetime was inspiring for me. He was about excellence. When I was in first and second grade, I didn't know what college was, but I knew I was going, right? Because he just kept saying, what's this place called? I just knew I was going to college. So that was a sort of socialization. So the education was key. He drilled education. He drilled work ethic and integrity. And so those are key for me. Other folks, so Naeem Akbar is a mentor of mine. Not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but Afrocentric scholar, psychologist. We both went through the psychology programs at the University of Michigan. He's clinical psychology. I'm social psychology. Great scholar, the best speaker I've ever known. I mean, just outstanding. And so he's inspired me to do this work in terms of the public speaking, the training. His style has definitely rubbed up on me. His boldness with which he speaks definitely rubbed up on me. His facilitation of speech, as well as his appreciation for evidence and science and data. And so those would be two that come to mind most immediately.
Yeah, I came across his work some time ago, but I think he was a part of Morehouse too.
He was. So when he
Yes.
was at Morehouse, he was a Luther Weems. Right. This is back in the 70s. And then he lived in Atlanta for a while. And then he converted to Islam while in Atlanta through the Nation of Islam and changed his name to Naeem Akbar. Yep.
Okay. Yes. 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 Great brother. I think I have his books here, and I listened to his speeches a few times, and he's powerful. I should say that.
Absolutely.
And so that's great. My next question to you is, what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in our society today?
Mixed. I think that the perspective has changed. I mean, Barack Obama was one person, but we can't ignore the visual of a Black man being president for 8 years. That is significant. So the ability to have somebody in highest office has been demonstrated. So to say a Black man came, I know he's biracial technically, but he identifies as Black. So that a Black person can be president, we can check that box, at least for the Black male. We'll see what happens with a Black female one day.
Yeah.
So I think there's positive achievements in many different sectors, but still lots of work to do. I mean, we got Black billionaires now, several Black billionaires with a B. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Great. So that's on a higher end. On a more challenging end, we still have huge disparities, right? Healthcare, income, education, criminal justice, housing. Black males are still the worst off. We die the earliest of all the bad Black stuff: hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, all the bad stuff, cancer, gun violence. So we're still at the top of the list on the bad stuff, and at the bottom of the list, all the good stuff, with the exception of maybe Native American males on reservations, right? Outside of them, we're the worst off. So we still have lots of work to do, although there are some sectors where things have improved.
Okay. So, like, what type of work is it? More educational approach to helping us as Black men to change our perspective of self and what's possible?
Yeah, but education is not just in the classroom, all right? So education from the Latin educere or educare, which means to lead out or bring out that which is within. So education is like you have a teacher that says, okay, Jamal, 2 plus 2 is 4. Jamal says, okay, I got it. Dr. Marks, 2 plus 2 is 4, okay? But then because I know Jamal and we have relationship, I can say, well, you know what, Jamal? I see that you like taking things apart and putting it back together again. You could be a mechanical engineer. But you know, one of the foundations of being an engineer is mathematics. So now Jamal is learning math with his passion, call, and purpose in mind. That's education.
Wow.
Teaching him 2 plus 2 is 4 is one thing. Pulling out of him his potential to be an engineer, and now the math is a means to an end, is education. And anyone can be an educator. The janitor can be an educator. The school counselor can be an educator. If you see potential in a young person and can do something to facilitate its development, you are an educator in the etymological sense, in a literal sense, right? Maybe not in a classroom sense, but you can still pour into that person and inspire them. Absolutely. So I think it starts education, answer your question, formal and informal. But then we as a society, and this is why I went from teaching at Morehouse. I'm still a professor at Morehouse, but I'm pouring into these young Black men. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm inspiring them. But it became extremely clear when I was at the White House that there are different agencies, police departments, prosecutors' offices, hospitals, social workers who hold these negative perceptions of young Black men. So I said, I need to educate them too, right? Because I can inspire these Black men as much as I want. But if they get pulled over by the police don't know this guy went to Morehouse and inspired and great, but he's just like a young Black man in a nice car. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to work with the cop. So it works both ways. The education is key for young Black men themselves, but also to the individuals who are in positions that can influence their outcomes.
And that is profound. I do believe so. I do believe that they need to, educate themselves. And I see the young man is right there.
Hello.
Hello.
Tell him your name.
My name is Bryant.
This is Bryant Thomas Marks II. We call him Deuce. So this is my young Black male,
That's
Deuce.
right.
And so we're recording an interview right now. So you can just say hi, then we need to go to bed, okay?
Okay.
All right, love you, brother.
All
No
right.
question game?
We already played shootout. Come on, man. I'll
Aw.
come check on you.
Okay,
All
bye bye.
right. So yeah, this is real for me. That's it right there.
Yes, and you touch on 2 points. Yes, we need to, and those people that deal with us need to understand that they cannot look at us based on those biases that we have been conditioned to think, because we too think of those biases too and see ourselves as what society say we are,
Right.
what we are not, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So that is important in changing the narrative, or give us a different perspective of self, or those that we have to deal with in life each day.
Right.
What change do you see? What change do you want to see in general amongst Black men?
We got to reduce the violence.
Reduce.
Yeah, the for most years in the past 20 years, the number one cause of death for young Black males who's 30 and younger is homicide.
Okay.
And for the most part, it's us killing us. We got to value each other.
Yeah.
So that's one. I mean, it's one thing if you're not educated. It's one thing if you don't get along. But to take another Black male's life over some things that are often not very important, often a space that we don't actually own. Like if you said that's my corner, that ain't your corner. Somebody else owns that corner. You might do something on that corner, but it ain't yours. And if the city or the owners want y'all gone, you're gonna be gone. So the whole notion of possession of space, right, is an illusion. So we need to absolutely pull back on the violence we inflict on each other. So we just keep each other alive. Even if you don't all best friends, right? We gotta address that. That's just the honest truth of it. And then on the other extreme is collaboration, like unifying. Like if we could sort of coordinate, whether it's celebrities or whether it's Black men in neighborhoods, and we could work in unity, if we come up with a plan, if we could work in concert, if we could circulate our dollars amongst ourselves, work as a full community, that would be awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Unity is strength, and when we have that strength, we can move forward faster and further. So
Absolutely.
I do believe, in the collaboration. That's something that I'm learning, and the more I realize the importance of the work that we need to do to move us forward. So my next question to you, and I think you may have answered this question, but I'm still going to ask it. What was a pivotal moment in your life?
I mean, going to Morehouse for sure.
Okay.
That decision was key. That put me on a certain trajectory. I'd say, yeah, the educational pieces. My parents made good educational choices early on. And then I made them go to Morehouse and University of Michigan. They were just excellent educational choices. And it gave me the network, the knowledge, the skills to do what I do today. So those are pivotal. Choosing my wife, or we choosing each other, critical. I think trip to Africa. So I went to Ghana and Egypt. Every Black person needs to go to Ghana or Liberia, Sierra Leone. But I would say Ghana because they speak English. You go to the slave castles. You go to Ghana, you walk down the street, you see people, oh, that could be my cousin. They look like us. Right? Yeah. It's very interesting. So there, going to the slave castles, going to the dungeons, feeling that, getting a real sense of what our ancestors went through, that was pivotal. Egypt, going through the pyramids, Valley of the Kings, that these Black Africans, before all the race mixing and all this ridiculous Hollywood take on Egypt happened, these are Black Africans, Black and brown. And even if they had red, that was ceremonial if you look at the walls, right? So seeing what Black Africans had built, that they were the first to be educated, that the world, like ancient Egypt, Kemet, was the intellectual capital of the world for like 2,000 years. Like the rest of the world would come to them to learn. Like really think about that. The intellectual capital. Like you think about the US as a superpower. They were the intellectual superpower.
Wow.
For 2,000 years. Just knowing that and seeing the hieroglyphs on the walls and seeing that they were performing brain surgery at 1750 BC for myself, pivotal moment. Because it said, no, being excellent is part of who we are originally, right? So we weren't just the first people on the planet, right? Which I think everybody pretty accepts that we were. We're the first intelligent people on the planet, the first educated people on the planet. And this is documented. So once I had that evidence and it was clear, I mean, I never felt intimidated in intellectual spaces, right? With the Europeans are the students of the African. That's just what it is. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade on them. That's just what happened, right? Pythagoras studied Pythagorean theorem, studied in Egypt for 22 years. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates studied in Africa, North Africa. Why do you think Alexander the Great wanted that library in Alexandria, in Egypt? Because there was no other library in the world like it. It had so much knowledge. So these dots are very easy to connect. This is not a mystery anymore. So to your earlier point about what positive things can we do, change the narrative, if Black folks, especially Black men, knew who they are and what they've achieved, ancestrally speaking, I think there'll be a certain level of confidence that will come along with it in a positive way.
And that is profound, and not just profound. I think, as you say, once we know ourselves, that is powerful. It is very vital. I can tell you, because I didn't start off this journey thinking that I was going to be anybody. Growing up in Jamaica, growing up in poverty, failed everything when I was much younger. But coming here and got the exposure, and once I developed the confidence in myself, I haven't looked back since. And I wasn't exposed to what Africans or Black people have done really until later. But once I started to become more confident in who I am, I realized that the potential was already there, not knowing, but because my environment told me that I couldn't, and I believed it. So on a broad scale, yes, we have heard a lot of things that we are not good at, or what we cannot do. And just the knowledge of our excellence, it would be great for more people to have direct connection, or just to hear from people who have been there. I think that will ignite that spark within themselves to dismantle the falsification that has been perpetrated about us. So you saying we need to go to Ghana and just learn those things, I really appreciate it. I've never been, but it's one of the places that I want to go. So I'm just glad you shared that. So when I'm listening to this again, I can remember it just in case I forget. And so my next question, my next question, what life lesson did you learn late that you think is beneficial to this generation now that you'd share with them, that you learn late that you think is beneficial?
Oh, that one is easy. Financial literacy.
Wow.
Every single Black person needs to be financially literate, and every single Black person needs to know how to start their own business. Have some entrepreneurial skills where you're not dependent on a job or an organization, whatever, because that is fleeting. That can come and go. But if you know how to create your own wealth, how to invest wealth, when you know how your money makes money for you while you're sleeping, I didn't learn. Although I'm a business owner now, right? So I'm a professor at Morehouse, but we run this diversity training. So I got to hire employees, and our business is done pretty well. So we got to pay ridiculous amounts of taxes, right? So I'm paying just ridiculous amounts of taxes, and Donald Trump paying $750. I'm like, how's that dude, a billionaire, paying no taxes? And I'm like middle class, paying no. So I started doing my own research. Now, I clearly understand why rich people don't pay taxes. They leverage real estate, they leverage life insurance, they have all types of things they can do. I'm not even talking about the fancy offshore accounts. I'm talking about, for our business, we have a self-directed solo 401k. That might sound strange to you. I had to learn that myself, right? Wow. So now that we have that, and I know that we can invest in itself because my wife and I own our business. It's a very unique situation, right? So you have to own your business. We're an S Corp. So now we invest in that. We hired our children in our business. We can pay our kids a salary up to $12,950 a year, as long as they do legitimate work for the business. And then we take about $6,000 of that, put in a Roth IRA for them every year. So by the time they're 59 and a half, they have over $1 million. I just found this out in the last few years we've been doing this, right? That you can buy a real estate property, a rental property, right off depreciation. So if you buy a property for $200,000, right, that property is going to depreciate naturally over 27 and a half years, according to the government. You can take that depreciation, that 200,000 divided by 27 and a half, each of those 27 and a half years, or you can accelerate it. Take all the depreciation on in the first year, right? To offset losses, if you have any losses from that real estate. And if you use it like a short-term rental, something like that, that can offset your W-2 income from your job or from another business. So yeah, you know what rich people have? Real estate. They got backdoor Roth IRA that grow tax-free. And when they take it out, it's tax-free. They have life insurance policy. They can take loans against it. Loan is not income, so that loan is not taxed. All this stuff. I wish I knew this when I was 20. Right? I didn't even know there was a difference in accountants. There's a CPA who just files your taxes. There's tax strategists, tax planners, and there's enrolled agents. Do you know what an enrolled agent is? The enrolled agent is somebody that IRS certifies that knows tax law at a deep level. I didn't even know they existed until last year.
Wow.
So all of this I'm learning, I'm 50 years old and learning all this now. Do you know, because I see my life as the transition point. So from my kids and grandkids, I'm the transition generation where we're going to be financially independent. So the Marx descendants from Bryant Marx, all my descendants, when they don't got to pay to go to college, they don't got to pay to start a business, they don't got to pay to put the down payment in the first house. We're going to have a trust, a fund in place that's going to compound interest, is going to fund itself over time. That is my mission. Financial independence for generations to come. And we put it in a trust so that they can't mess it up. Some people, they lose wealth real quick. So you got to structure it in a particular way. I didn't even know all this. That you can buy as much real estate as you want. It accumulates in value, right? And then when you die, in terms of your estate, you can pass it on to your kids. The cost basis goes up, right? The value goes up. They pay no taxes when they inherit those properties. But if I sold those properties, whatever the gain was, I have to pay taxes on it. I wouldn't even know that. So you buy it till you die. You don't sell real estate. You buy it, leverage it, the depreciation. And if you sell it, you 1031 exchange it and buy a new property. All this stuff is new. So the way I'm talking to you about this fluidly, this is in the last 2 years. I didn't know this stuff before. So imagine my kids, they have Roth IRAs, right? So, and they could pull out the principal at any point, no penalty. So now when they're 22, graduate from college, they got about $300 in principal in the fund, about $400,000 probably at that point in interest. But now they say you're going to start their own business or buy a house. They have $300,000 they can pull out as a down payment. Well, we know by then it'll be probably significant, right? So it's still, let's assume it's 3 to 5%. But that if Black folks knew that they could just put a little bit of money aside, even if you put it in an index fund for the stock exchange, S&P 500, just a regular index fund, it's going to grow 6 to 8% every year on average. It's going to double in about 7 years. We need to know that early. It doesn't take a lot, right? It's just where do you put it? So anyway, that was a long answer.
No, but
Yes.
that is important. I hope the listeners took notes, and financial literacy has been a conversation when it comes to us, because we're not doing so
frozen. I'm not
well.
sure if you can hear me, but
When
you're frozen.
when it comes to our money, we spend so much, but we have nothing to really show. They say we are $1 trillion, we spend trillions of dollars, but nothing to really show for all that we have earned. So it's important. It has been a conversation within our community,
Right.
to learn financial literacy, or to become
Absolutely.
financial literacy.
Absolutely.
Literate.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. All right. But before I ask my final question, Dr. Marks, I tell you, I could listen to you forever based on your knowledge and your foundation work. But I want to ask you one question before I ask you the final question. Where can the listeners support you and your work?
Easiest thing is just go to our website, www.national.training. So yes, it's not .com, not .org, national.training. That's it. Once you get to the website, our contact information is there. You see what we do. And also for our business, a portion of all of our revenue is donated to a scholarship fund at Morehouse College. So Morehouse College owns a portion of our business. That was part of our arrangement. That's part of my way of giving back. So, and that's a legacy type thing. But yeah, that's where you can go. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. It's Bryant Marks at LinkedIn. Bryant. Yeah, just Bryant. Put in Bryant Marks at LinkedIn. I'll pop right up. So I'm easy to find in those ways. But the website is the easiest.
Okay, man. Thank you, man. Your knowledge is. I just love hearing, especially Black men that knows what they talk about, or not just talk about it, but model it. And just for you to share in depth of the financial literacy that you just recently came across, just show your dedication to help this generation, help us as Black people to become the best version of ourselves, so we can create a legacy, and so we can change the narrative, what we were born into or come into. So that is a good, what I would say, it's really appreciated, I would say, the work that you're doing and stuff like that. So my last question to you and listeners, if you haven't yet subscribed to the Black Male Impact, please do. We're going to have more great conversations, and I hope you got something from this conversation. But my last question to Dr. Marks is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
on the world, I would say improve the life outcomes of vulnerable populations with an emphasis on African Americans, Black Americans, I should say, and young Black males in particular. So if I can inspire them to be the best versions of themselves by educating them, and also inspire larger society in the US or globally, because this young Black male thing is not just a US phenomenon, so that folks will see them as human beings from an asset-based perspective, then I feel like I've done my job.
Man, thank you. And I want to say thank you for being with us today. I greatly enjoyed the conversation. I got a lot from it, and I will definitely go back and listen to the nuggets that you shared today. And so, Dr. Marks, thank you for being with us today on the Black Male Impact.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right, thank you.